I think the larger banks in the reporting that we've done, both for the Frontline documentary and the New York Times, are coming to the conclusion that this agency is probably going to exist. So they're trying to figure out what to do around all of this. And that's what we're in the middle of right now, is how do we regulate consumer lending going into the future? And one of the key issues that's going to be discussed, I'm sure, in Congress is how do you do that at the same time that the banks are claiming that they're in such poor financial health that they can't afford the losses that are mounting. Now, let me just explain, back up for a second and say that the way that what's turned out, there's an interesting phenomenon with credit cards, and that is that the loss rate for credit cards normally had been around 4%. That's what the banks factor in when they charge all these fees and when they set an interest rate. Well, that loss rate usually parallels unemployment, and as we all know, unemployment is now up to the real unemployment rate is at a post-depression high. Well, the bank's losses are that high as well. So the critical economic question, and the thing that's going to influence all of our lives in terms of consumption, is how much regulation can the banks stand? Are the banks making any money in this business anymore? Will they have to get a new business model and develop that? And will credit cards, debit cards, and the other things that we use every day change dramatically? It appears it will be. Whether or not, in fact, there's any legislation, it looks like it's going to continue to be not only hard, but much harder to get a consumer loan.
How have things changed, Lowell Bergman, from The Secret History of Credit Cards, your first documentary on this that has run repeatedly, to the one that is airing on Tuesday, The Card Game?
Well, the big change is that the industry basically could do whatever it wanted up until a year and a half ago, when in the midst of the economic crisis and as the unemployment rate started to rise, started to incur great losses in this business. When we first did the first film, most people didn't know really. If you ask people how do credit cards work, they really don't know, and still many people don't know. And the industry, in a sense, liked it like that. They could get away with, for instance, as we explained in the first film, a 0% interest come-ons, various kinds of gimmicks to market with and get people to take these credit cards and get them into a cycle of debt. How have things changed now? People are going bankrupt. Credit cards are no longer that, if you will, a greater profit center for the industry. And on top of that, it appears that the Congress and the politicians, despite the fact that the industry, financial services industry, pours the most money into Congress and congressional campaigns of any single lobby. So if you understand that they've spent, despite the fact that we're bailing the banks out with hundreds of billions of dollars, that they spent hundreds of millions of dollars this year in Washington for lobbying. Even with all of that money, their political clout is in many ways getting diluted because of the objective situation out there and the amount of unhappiness people have with banks. You know, we're doing a piece for this Sunday, and just as a preview for it, I mean, most of the surveys and most of the studies have shown that banks and credit cards in particular are amongst the most unpopular and the subject of most complaints of consumers in America. And that's catching up with
Lowell Bergman, I want to thank you very much for being with us. Frontline correspondent, professor at the Berkeley Graduate School of Journalism. The PBS Frontline documentary, The Card Game, will air on Tuesday night on PBS. That does it for our broadcast. Democracy Now! Produced by Mike Berkshire, Foto Catus, Aaron Mate, Angelique Kamet, Nicole Salazar, Stu Martinez, Hani Masood, Robbie Karen. Special thanks to the whole team, including Peter Curries, Nick Gilla, Becca Staley, Julie Crosby, Karen Bernucci. Special thanks also to Stanford Video. Tonight I'll be in Santa Barbara, then moving on to Los Angeles, Pasadena, Fresno, Davis, Sacramento. Chico will be in Ashland, Eugene, Portland.